go ahead and call the Sherwood School Board to order for March 10th, 2021. Ainsley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Are there any questions or a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Spotlight on. Ms. Randalls.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Chair Allen, and Superintendent Cordy. I am excited to be here tonight to introduce you to our new Director of Special Programs, Dr. Joshua Fritz. So Josh's first day was this past Monday, and it was a great day to start, a new job as we welcome back our first students to our K-1 students back to in-person learning. So Josh stood out as a candidate through the rigorous hiring process due to his diverse background in education, his heart for students, and his commitment to achieving equitable outcomes for our underserved students. Dr. Fritz comes to us with a wealth of experience. Most recently, Josh served as the head of school at an international school in Thailand. Prior to that, he had educational leadership positions in Washington, D.C. and Qatar. And although his career has taken him across the country and around the world, Josh is an Oregonian, so he's coming back home. He served in special education administrative roles in Beaverton School District and Portland Public School District. And before becoming an administrator, he taught in Reynolds School District, and he served as a special education teacher there and a TOSA in the Special Programs Department. So I'm thrilled to have Josh as a partner in our work to provide providing high quality support and instructional services to our staff, our students, and to the families here in Sherwood. So please join me in welcoming Josh to Sherwood School District.
Good evening. Thank you, Erin, Superintendent Dr. Cordy, and Chair Allen, as well as the distinguished members of the board. I am truly honored to have been given the opportunity to be part of the Sherwood School District team. I was drawn to the district for its unwavering commitment to supporting all students to be successful academically, social, emotionally, and ready for life after graduation, be that career or college focused. As I have visited schools this week, and I have been largely out in schools, I've had the opportunity to speak with faculty and staff, and this commitment has been ever present. And I have been greatly impressed by the wonderful people who made up the Sherwood School District. I look forward to being a contributing member of the community as we all work together to support our students well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fritz, and welcome. We're glad to have you on board. Look forward to working with you. All right, let's move on to reports. Superintendent Dr. Cordy.
All right, good evening. Thank you. So I have two exciting updates for you in my superintendent report, things to share. So first of all, really great news today regarding changes to outdoor athletics guidance. And so this updated guidance will allow us to expand access to all athletic events for spectators and participants, beginning with this Friday's home football game. So our team was amazing as they worked to prepare for this. The plan they developed will allow spectators and band and cheer to participate those home football games. Each group is going to have their own entrance and exit and restrooms. And so we had heard that there might be some adjustments made just a few days ago, but we were still very uncertain And Mr. Bell and Mrs. Barron and the high school team took the initiative, including ordering portable bathrooms and temporary barriers to section off the parts of the stadium for the various groups. Started doing that a couple days ago because we thought that guidance could possibly come to fruition, and it sure did. And now, because of their proactive approach and the details in creating the plan, we're able to, as we communicated today to our staff and families and students, just really straight away make those changes. So excited about that. And second of all, and even more exciting, I think, is the first days of school this week. And I just cannot tell you just the being able to experience Monday and Tuesday our youngest learners, our kindergartners and first graders, being at schools. I know I saw several board members at schools as well. So I'm sure you know what I'm describing. Even in a normal year, I have butterflies and get so excited about the first day of school. And that's how this felt this week. And I was prepared for that part, but what I wasn't so prepared for was just the wide range of emotions that all centered around gratitude and joy and hope as we greeted families and students. And I got to meet a new friend, and his name is Miles. And he's one of our youngest learners at one of our elementary schools. And when we were getting to visit while he was waiting to go in to find his classroom for the first time ever, I was asking him what he was most excited about the day. And we had already talked about his new red tennis shoes. So he said, well, you already know about my new red tennis shoes, and I'm pretty excited about that. He said, but I'm really excited about making friends in person. And that pretty much captures everything about what this week means. And I truly have not been filled with so much hope in about a year. And so it has been a wonderful week. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. ASB report. Ainsley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to talk because I have a lot. Today we had our first in-person student council meeting, and it was amazing. And we got to tour the building, and a lot of sports have been able to go around the building and just tour, and it's been amazing. All fall sports have officially competed at least once. Including our football, our volleyball, our soccer, our cheerleading. They got to cheer on some soccer, so that was really cool. And this week is Dornbecker week. We do not have a Bowman pageant because of lack of interest with it being online, which totally understandable. So we are doing a bunch of eat out days. So if you're feeling a little hungry after this, you can go order online at Spaghetti Factory or go to Handles. And then tomorrow it's Spaghetti Factory and Friday it's Panda Express. So just saying, throwing it out there. And then for Sparrow Club, we got approval to do an in-person teacher versus student tournament doing volleyball, kickball, dodgeball. And so we're really excited. It's going to be late April, so we have a very long time to plan it. But very excited to see what you guys have been able to allow us to do. So thank you guys.
Great. Thank you, Ainsley. That concludes the reports we have for tonight. So let's move to audit review presentation. Mr. Johansson.
Thank you, Chair Allen, members of the school board, Director or Superintendent Cordy. Tonight, in Tara Camp with Pauline Rogers will be here to discuss the results of her audit. Before she picks up, I would like to call out that we are here later than normal, and we had some trouble, or specifically me, had some trouble hitting my marks. We had some staff changes and a number of other things. We don't expect that to happen again. We've had some debriefs on how we can accomplish this, which includes getting a list of the information that's been asked, will be asked for the audit. We've been collecting that. We've adjusted our schedule, and we're going to be pretty, we're going to keep our calendars closed when they're here so we can address them and make sure that we give everything they need. So with that, I'll introduce Tara. Thank you.
Ms. Camp, take it away.
Hello, my name is Tara Camp. I'm a partner with Polly Rogers and Company. Sorry, I'm a little frazzled. I was just having technical difficulties. But thank you so much for having me here this evening to present the results of the June 30, 2020 financial statement audit. So what I'll do is I'll go over the communication to the governing body letter. And that's a nice letter that summarizes everything we're required to communicate with you. So on page 1 of the letter, we cover the purpose of the audit. And the purpose for the district is threefold. We perform the financial statement audit, which is where we test and assess the financials created by management in order to determine if they're fairly stated. We perform the Oregon Municipal Audit Law. That is the compliance audit required of all governments in the state of Oregon over ORS compliance. And we cover the federal, state, and other agency single audit, and that is where we test federal grants for compliance with federal monies. And then on page 2, we cover the results of the audit. And the results of the audit for the Sherwood School District are excellent. For the financial statement audit, we issued an unmodified opinion. That is a clean opinion with no reservations. That's exactly what you're going for. For state minimum standards, we found no exceptions or issues requiring comment. For federal awards, we found no issues of noncompliance and no question costs. And we had no separate management letter issued. If there were problems that required the board's attention, we would issue a separate management letter. And then on the next page, we talk about difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We did encounter difficulties in performing and completing our audit due to delays in information provided from the district to the auditor. And this is what was touched on earlier. And honestly, we had to give that comment a lot this year. This was a really tough year overall. Obviously, nobody needs to be reminded. We had the pandemic and so many changes, and then key staff member turnover at the district also contributed to that. So there was some timing delays, but overall the audit went well. We had no disagreements with management about accounting and auditing items, which was good. And then lastly, on the last couple of pages, we cover future accounting and auditing issues coming up, and those are good to be aware of. New accounting standards come out all the time. And so these are nice little summaries, and we will definitely work with management in the future to make sure that everything is implemented when it should be. So overall, good results for the audit, and I'd be happy to take questions if you have any.
Any questions for Ms. Camp? Seeing none, thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Have a good evening.
Let's move on to public comment. Ms. Andrew, do we have public comment tonight?
Yes, we do. We have 3 public comments submitted. Okay, John Smith at 1060 Cobblestone Drive. Thank you to the board and administration on your dedication to opening the schools. My comment is about the budget savings. While I understand the focus currently on reopening schools, it would be great if prior to the end of the school year, the board was able to have a public discussion on the plans for the 14 million projected savings this year. I assume this doesn't include any federal funds that will be allocated as well. I would be interested in hearing what the administration's plan is for using the excess tax funds. Steve and Stacy Robertson, Sherwood, Oregon. We are very concerned with the emphasis the board is placing on becoming an anti-racist organization along with a broader social justice agenda within policies and curriculum. We all agree racism is unacceptable, but the word anti-racism isn't what it seems. It is derived from a school of thought called critical race theory. Critical race theory seeks to implement a system of equity that requires unequal treatment of individuals in order to arrive at equal outcomes of groups. Instead of emphasizing our shared humanity, it lumps people into simplistic racial and ethnic categories and treats people differently depending on skin color. CRT is itself racist at its core. It teaches to obsess over race and perceived racial hierarchies, and that every human interaction involves oppression. It makes kids fixate on race and attach importance to it in grotesque ways. It tells our children that America is a bad country and that white people bear collective racial guilt. Our kids will be educated in resentment and fear and coercion. CRT-based programs are hateful, divisive, and encourage racial stereotypes and race-based harassment. The Oregon Department of Education recently encouraged educators to take a course titled A Pathway to Equitable Math Instruction, Dismantling Racism in Mathematics Instruction. The course says that white supremacy culture infiltrates math classrooms and everyday teacher interactions. Surely our math teachers would take offense to this. It also claims that white supremacy shows up by focusing on getting the right answer or when students are required to show their work, and that educators identify and challenge the ways that math is used to uphold capitalist, imperialist, and racist views. This is completely absurd and outrageous. Does the board agree with this program? In some elementary schools, teachers ask children under age 10 to evaluate themselves based on race, religion, gender, and sexuality to determine their intersectional power and privilege ranking. Would our board allow this? Do you support forcing first or second graders to deconstruct their racial and sexual identities? Do you support a curriculum that teaches that all white people play part in perpetuating systematic racism? Do you support telling white teachers that they are guilty of spirit murdering Black children? Do you support telling white parents that they should seek to become white traitors and advocate for white abolition? These are all real-world examples of CRT-based programs put into practice. We should be encouraging universal human values of honesty, openness, human rights, kindness, respect, dignity, etc., and reject these new racist and intolerant agendas. The school board owes parents and the community complete and open transparency regarding any proposed curriculum or policy changes. We cannot allow our schools to devolve into indoctrination centers employing psychological and emotional manipulation of our children's mental well-being. Steve and Stacy Robertson. Nikki Darling at 22944 Southwest Washington Street. Thank you, trustees, for allowing to make my public comment, and I sincerely appreciate your hard work. I was dreaming when I wrote this. Forgive me if it goes astray, but when I woke up this morning, I could have sworn it was Judgment Day. I know times are changing. It's time we all reach out for something new. That means you too. You say you want a leader, but you can't seem to make up your mind. I think you better close it and let me guide you. If you don't like the world you're living in, take a look around you. At least you got friends. Thank you for your time and efforts in bringing our children back to school. And that concludes public comment.
Thanks. I just want to briefly comment. There was one of those comments that made reference to a dollar amount of budget savings, and I'm not sure where that number came from, and I was getting puzzled looks from staff too. So I don't want people to necessarily assume that quoted number or savings of any kind really are a thing, because we're actually spending more money during the pandemic rather than less in most categories. All right, with that, we'll move on to action items. First up is secondary reopening dates. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I'm quite excited tonight to make this recommendation to the board. Earlier this evening in a work session, staff presented to the board a detailed presentation on plans for reopening the in-person instruction at the middle school and high school. It included everything from schedules to orientation plans to transition plans and a whole host of calendar dates. Tonight, staff is recommending the board adopt those actions listed in the summary of opening middle school on April 5th, high school on April 20th, and a host of associated calendar changes, many of which are noted on the calendar Mr. Emmert will present later. Some, such as orientation days, are not, and those will be communicated to staff or to families separately, but they're all noted on the summary sheet here.
Are there questions? If not, is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation on reopening dates?
Mr. Chair, I move that we.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is to kind of clarify, Haha, yeah. This is just to follow up on Jessica's question on the work session about when we actually denote that the in-person instructions day actually begin. We tie that to orientation instead of the instruction day. Does that make a difference on this calendar? Because right now we're kind of pointing out that it's the full day of instruction and it's not tied to orientation.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is the action that we need to take has to do with when instruction begins, but communication about that needs to focus on orientation.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I do have a question about that because we talk about April 5th as April 5th is the day for middle school, but I believe that those are the dates that start with middle school orientation. We talk about high school starting on the 20th, but they actually start orientation on the 13th.
That is correct. So the actual specific dates would be, they're noted here in a way that probably could be clearer. In that middle school opens for orientation on April 5th and regular instruction on April 13th once orientation's done. And the high school begins orientation on April 13th along with finals week that week, and the orientations are a little bit different. And instruction starting on the 20th of April. And part of the reason that's noted is that way is that students at the middle school will actually go through their schedule and have a different orientation day, and the high school will be not put on by teachers. They'll look somewhat different. That's part of the reason they're notated. But for the purposes of just being crystal clear, middle school reopening starts orientation on the 5th and in-person instruction on the 13th. High school starts orientation on the 13th and in-person instruction on the 20th.
So do we have a motion to authorize middle school orientation on the 5th, instruction on the 13th, high school orientation on the 13th, instruction on the 20th?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Sorry for the lack of clarification and appreciate the question.
No problem. Mr. Bennett, calendar revisions.
Thank you, Board Chair Allen. So that's okay. I've been called worse. So earlier this evening, district staff provided the board with revisions to the 2021 district calendar. And in addition to those, we've added the revised dates to the elementary calendar, which already have been in effect. Tonight, I just want to briefly again summarize some of the changes that have occurred on this calendar before we ask for this calendar to be adopted. So reopening dates have been clarified. Thank you, Mr. Bennett, at all three levels. We added the elementary professional development days, which have already occurred. At the middle level, Q3 ends at a different date than it had originally, and the grading day was changed. The professional development days were added, and conferences, as Ms. Thunderhide shared earlier, now become virtual, returning April 15th and 16th to in-person instruction days. And at the high school, orientation and finals week was added in addition to just the reopening date. Unless there are any questions tonight, the district requests that the board approve the revisions to the 2021 district calendar.
Jessica.
I'm ready to make a motion unless there are questions. Mr.
Okay.
Chair, I move that we adopt the calendar revisions as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Oh, Mike, did you have discussion?
No, I was ready.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Last up is interdistrict transfers. Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Chair Allen, Superintendent Cordy, Board. State law currently dictates the process for interdistrict transfers. At least once a year, the board determines the number of openings for each non-resident student to transfer into the Sherwood School District, as well as the number of openings for resident students who may transfer out of the district. Last year, the board directed staff to allow for 45 student transfers from outside the district boundaries at grades 9 through 12 for the 2021 school year. This evening, the district is recommending a continuation of this approach and proposing an additional 45 slots from outside the district for grades 9 through 12 for the 21-22 school year. Students admitted under these transfers will be able to attend Sherwood High School through graduation, provided that they meet the requirements of our transfer agreement related to attendance and behavior. So to clarify, the recommendation is one, that we open 30 slots for students transferring out of Sherwood School District, and that we open 45 non-resident slots for students transferring into the district. I would like to amend something that's in the written packet for tonight. The packet states that the slots will be allocated via lottery, and there's a noted preference. We are amending this to scratch the part about a preference for students who were in the district last year, because we already have agreed in our agreement last year that students who started last year will get to graduate through the end, so there's no need to have that first preference. So the only preference in the lottery will be students who attended the charter school the last 2 years, in the 1920 and 2021 school year. And that lottery will be conducted with a process that starts March 11th, remains open through April 1st, and then the lottery will occur at that time and we'll notify students. So our recommendation is 30 slots out and 45 slots in.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the interdistrict transfer policy as presented by Mr. Bell with the addition, with the amendment as he shared with us this evening.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our business for tonight. Our next board meeting will be on Wednesday, April 14th. Mike.
So I just wanted to make a comment quick about, the events that happened this week, reopening the schools. It was such a great thing to see. I was at 2 of the elementary schools. I wanted to thank the principals, Tim Smith and Miranda Johnson, at the schools I was at, and all their staff. They are incredible professionals, and they did such a great job welcoming the kids and the families. And I even saw our new special programs director, Josh Fritz, doing a tour of the facilities. It felt like a historic day. So it was really good to see that. And I really want to thank all the work that went through to make that happen. It's been just a tremendous thing. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, then we are adjourned.